You are now listening to Good, Bad, or Bullshit.
Good evening, or good day, depending on when you are listening to this, and welcome to Good, Bad, or Bullshit. Random topics, unrehearsed conversation, and quality reviews. My name is Michael Hodgins. I'm one of your three hosts on this lovely podcast, along with Mr. Bo Schwartz. Hello, Bo.
Hello, Michael. Hello, GBB listeners. A pleasure to be here, as always.
You cut me off on the Crofton Steers introduction. Hello, Crofton.
Hey, Michael. Hey, GBB listeners. It's me, Crofton.
Enthusiasm.
Yes.
Hopefully that enthusiasm will carry over to the topic once it's announced.
I'm sure it will, Michael. I'm enthused about all our topics.
It'll be a super boring one that you'll be like, oh.
There's no boring topic, Michael. I believe they all have some sort of value to offer us and our listeners.
You're doing the radio voice now.
Yeah, we've received like public service announcement, Crofton, or if you were a Barbie doll and you had a certain theme to your packaging, you would be officer friendly Crofton right now, because you're like
officer friendly. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'm officer friendly today, and officer friendly is looking forward to evaluating another topic. Judging the world one topic at a time and handing out demerits to the shitty topics.
Yes.
Hey, you stumped Michael. He's like, oh.
That's true. It's a good rehash of what are you guys feeling good today?
Yes.
I know Crofton is. Bo, you said you were headachy.
I was headachy today, and I took a nice afternoon nap, which was amazing, and I am starting to feel better. So, yeah.
And you had caffeine.
I did. Although I had caffeine this morning, and that didn't help at that time. And I took a shower, I went for a walk, I sang myself lullabies. None of it seemed to correct the mistake happening in my brains. But after a bit of sleep, it seems to have passed.
I feel like our listeners have now a good window into your life. Like through this episode and all the previous podcasts, I think they could put together your daily routine quite well.
Which is wake up, get a headache, and take a nap, and sleep the rest of the day.
Pretty much.
Then get up and record a podcast, and then play some video games and go to bed.
If they release that Oculus Rift VR thing at one point, if that ever happens, they should release the Bo Schwartz experience, which would be a day in the life of Bo. I think it would sell well.
Yeah, maybe they should. But speaking of the Bo Schwartz experience, the Good, Bad, or Bullshit experience, this is a horrible segue. We got a pretty good email on the subject of circumcision.
Just to be clear, if this is the first time you listen to this show, we did circumcision as a topic a few episodes back.
That's right. This is
contextual.
We got a good response to it, so be sure to stick around towards the end of the show. Check that out. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later.
Interesting. Yeah, it was. It was an interesting letter, but maybe we should get out the old random topic generator and get a topic going for this episode. I've got it here, ready to go.
All right, Mike, pull the chain, please.
Okay.
Officer Friendly is going to give demerit points for breaking the noise ordinance.
Man, we need to get like a catalytic converter or something for this thing. I say this all the time, but anyways.
I take your word for it.
The topic today is tattoos.
Tattoos.
Sweet. See, that's a topic. There we go. Not all topics are created equal.
You like this better than other ones?
Wait a second. Didn't you say all topics were
Let's forget what I said. This is a good one.
Okay, let's start with the obvious. Does either of you guys have tattoos?
No.
Okay. That's Bo. Crofton, you don't have tattoos.
Why do you say that so knowingly?
Because you're not the tattoo type for sure.
He's like,
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Look, if any of my previous verdicts on the music, the rock music being too loud, the bass being too annoying, and all that sort of thing, I think if I haven't, telegraphed
Painted yourself enough of a square already.
then this will be the icing on the cake. No, I do not have a tattoo.
I also have no tattoos. So, if we have any listeners with tattoos, they're probably going to be like, why are these people talking about
what a
this?
lame bunch of podcasting people. No tattoos.
Look, my brother has a tattoo. And he
Sorry, I laughed because I know what it is.
So he got the tattoo. He was dating a girl who had lots of tattoos, and then I guess he was kind of like, yeah, tattoos are kind of cool. He rides a motorcycle and all that, and I guess he wanted to be like
Fitting in, a great
how
reason
you're
to get a
supposed to
tattoo.
be. So he got like a tattoo of a skeleton Grim Reaper holding a piston for like an engine and screaming wind out of its mouth. And I was like, huh. And I was like, why did you choose that? He's like, well, I like working on cars and stuff. I'm like, so the Grim Reaper, he's holding the piston. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then I didn't really get it though. And then when he was in Thailand, he had a pirate ship added to the bottom. So now it looks like the Grim Reaper is like a ghostly figure emerging from this pirate ship. And I was like, okay. So he has that for life now on his arm. It's for life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
It
there
can be
are
removed, right?
there are operations in which you can remove it, but one of that size, like when they talk about tattoos being removed, it's normally some girl's name or something on your bicep, maybe. But like a full arm or a full shoulder tattoo would be very difficult to remove. Normally, what you see is people will correct a tattoo that they don't like by kind of like expanding it. You know how he had the ship added? You could potentially do other things like to make
Poor Richard. We're really laughing about his tattoo.
Oh, whatever. I've made fun of his tattoo
I
to
mean,
his face.
Now you're making.
I just want to say, like, maybe it wasn't the most tasteful, eclectic choice of tattoo, but you gotta respect, like,
Well, look,
someone's interests in art. I guess
this
it's
would
kind of
bring
insulting, right?
Well, okay, not to be continue insulting my brother, I suppose, and maybe all people with tattoos. Oh God.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah. So, what I would say about his decision to get that tattoo was that it was driven by sort of the influence of someone he was dating who had many tattoos. So there was like some I guess just
His
pure
penis.
pressure there. Yeah. Okay. And then he also like drove a motorcycle, and he was all into Harley Davidson, and there's this whole like culture around that, and like tattoos is part of it. And this brings me to sort of my view of tattoos now is that they are basically very mainstream, and they used to be the symbol of rebellion, and I think now they're almost the symbol of conformity. It's like the conformist's guide to be nonconformist is to get a tattoo. That's sort of how I look at it.
So okay, maybe you're answering this question already, but Bo, Mike, would either of you, not one of the three of us has a tattoo, would either of you consider getting a tattoo? Let's start with Mike because I think he just pretty much.
Well, okay,
But
now
he's trying to make some stupid story excuse about how it's too mainstream to get one now.
well, no, I do.
If it was
funny,
cool, he'd still do it. But now that it's mainstream, I'm not gonna get one.
No, but your like inner voice. I when you walk around town or whatever, you have like an inner voice that makes commentary on what you see. And I
Yes.
realize my inner voice is a complete jackass if I said half of what was in my head.
I think everybody's are.
I think, yeah. So often I'll see these guys go by with like whole sleeve tattoos, and I always, in my mind, imagine going up to them like, oh, wow, how did you ever think to get a tattoo? You must be such an individual. In this really patronizing way, because every second hipster I see has a sleeve taps tattoo these days. But that being said, like, I can appreciate the art that's on a lot of it, even though it tends to be of a similar type often.
Barbed wire.
The only tattoo that I would consider getting, and this is maybe speaks to my personality slightly, I thought it would be useful to have a tattoo of a ruler on my forearm that was accurate in length. So and it would be look like a ruler. So it'd be like, 30 centimeters or 12 inches on the other side. And that I would have a known measurement from the tip of my finger, my longest finger, to the start of the ruler, so that I knew that that was a specific measurement. So then I could just measure things with my arm. And that was and that was the only. And I told this to Andrea, and she's like, "Yeah, I could see you getting that tattoo." So that was the only one I'd ever consider. But I still probably won't get one.
A practical tattoo.
Well, yeah, it's practical. Like, what am I going to get? A sword with a snake wrapped around it? What's that good for?
Well, I think that's so. I'm going to answer the question now. 'Cause
Yeah,
Prophet
go
asked
ahead,
both
Bo.
of us.
Yeah.
And I've often considered getting a tattoo, and I think the thing that keeps me from doing it is just that it's kind of.
You're a pussy and it hurts.
No, it's not that. It's more just I can't ever pick what to put on. I think Mike's sort of driving at that a lot of tattoos, like there are, like, I don't know, tattoo tropes, right? Like that we've talked about that don't seem like you'd want something original, which means I'd have to pay somebody or know somebody to get something original made for me, like as a something to work from, I suppose, and then to have that put on. It's starting to sound like too much work, and I'm just like, I don't think so, and so that's always kind of been a major deterrent for me.
See, I don't have a tattoo, but I'm not necessarily against getting one. My thing was when I recognized when I was a kid, when people are first getting tattoos in their early 20s or even in their late teens, you always think to yourself, if you're smart,
Yeah.
how is this tattoo going to look around the retirement home pool when I'm 80? Is it going to look ridiculous, or is it going to look awesome? What is timeless? It's the same thing with anything. Like, what is timeless? What is dated? Having a tattoo says something about you. Not having a tattoo says something about you. But once you choose to have a tattoo, and Mike made the point, and I somewhat agree with that, the conformity thing, that it used to be a rebellious thing. Now it's like everybody's got them. That said, once you choose to have a tattoo, it can be of anything. So the ability to sort of say something about yourself, or have a ruler to be able to measure things. I mean, that's that, but it's still that says something about Mike as well. It says he's practical or whatever. But you'll see people that will either reflect their heritage. Like a lot of Samoans in particular have tribal tattoos. There's a lot of stuff like that, right? So now I'm older, I feel that, like, first off, I have a daughter. I could easily just do a heart with my daughter's name in it. That'd be a cop-out tattoo, but at least I wouldn't feel bad about it later. And so it's one of those things that now, if I got a tattoo now as an adult whose tastes are kind of firmly enshrined, I could really sort of reflect my individuality through a tattoo. And I feel like I could make a choice now that wouldn't look ridiculous later. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it for that reason. Although the pain thing, that's I'm a pussy. I that would be a big turnout.
That's where I have a hard time with it, because I feel like tattoos are very significant. They're very strong signs that, like, they have cultural value to people. People like they take them very seriously in terms of what they say about you, not just the tattoos themselves, but the fact that you have one. And I have this inherent belief of, like, impermanence. Like, the person I am this year is not the person I am 3 years ago. And there's this sense of picking something that is, quote, timeless. Like, I guess if I was, I don't know, Samoan.
You could expand on it, though, right?
If I was part of a cultural group, like, I don't know, that I knew and I'm going to be part of for life, then maybe it would have some significance, some of the tattoos. But apart from that, if I'm just left to choose what's cool, I'm going to choose wrong, like, 100% of the time. And I think that's most people. They may look beautiful, but there's a sense of impermanence to the way people are. We're not the people we are 5 years ago. And tattooing yourself something loaded with meaning, I think, runs a high risk of running headlong into stuff
I think that's a super good point. And if I just think back about myself from when I was, say, a teenager to my early 20s to my late 20s to my early 30s. I guess I'm getting old.
You're in your mid-30s now.
I'm on almost over the hump there into my later 30s. But I'm very different. Yeah, as you say, very different person. And things that I thought were cool or that I was into at certain times, I might now think are obnoxious or annoying. And knowing that that has happened in the past of things that I liked or and it hasn't happened for everything that I liked or disliked, but knowing that that has happened gives me enough insight about myself to be like, if I today am like, I'll get a ruler tattooed on my arm, that's awesome. Maybe in 10 years I'm going to be like, what a stupid tattoo. Why did I get
Actually, me and Crofton were already thinking that. We were just being nice.
I was thinking that.
Yeah.
But I understand, and that is totally valid. Because and this is it about tattoos being a personal thing. Because for me, I feel like I have not changed much for quite a while, and I feel like
I'll vouch for that. I've known Crofton a long time, and he sticks to his guns.
I'm fairly similar to how I was. Maybe I'm more comfortable and more confident in like, you know, it used to be things like I said music festivals I think were bullshit in a previous episode. Old Crofton might have been like still in denial of the fact that he thinks that he would have been more like trying to fit in. So I still have evolving tastes, like, but at the same point, I feel like I can make an educated choice for a tattoo. Here's a funny thing about me though, and one of the reasons I never wanted a tattoo, it was also I got the first cell phone I ever got was an iPhone, and when I got that, it was because I was in love with the technology. But most people had a cell phone. Everybody had cell phones before the first iPhone. They were all texting like by hitting the same number 3 times in a row or whatever, and so I was really late to the party to get a cell phone. And at that time, and my justification for not getting a cell phone was if ever I was on the run from the FBI or something, I didn't want them to be able to track me down or have like a chip on me that they could detect.
Privacy concerns.
Privacy concerns. And another thing is I'd played these games like Police Quest or whatever when I was a kid, where like you go through the files as a police officer, and one of the big things on each person's file it would say is distinctive scars and tattoos. And so I was like, man, soon as I put a tattoo on myself, unless it's a barbed wire around the bicep, that probably doesn't limit me in any way. It's really going to help. It's going to really help cops narrow me down if I am ever on the run.
It's true. Like if my brother'd be in trouble, they're like, we got an APB out and a guy with a screaming Grim Reaper tattoo with a piston coming out of a pirate ship. It's pretty specific.
Yeah, like, you know, Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, he has his big beard at the beginning, and then he goes and he shaves it, and they're like, oh God, where did he go?
Who is he now?
We can't find him anymore. Your brother has a giant handlebar mustache, could just shave it, go clean, shave his head, walk out with like a tank top on, and they'll be like, well, that's the guy with the screaming Grim Reaper and the piston on his shoulder.
Well, Crofton, you can probably check that off your list of reasons not to get a tattoo, because there's this stuff called DNA and fingerprints, which are also good ways of police to catch you, and because of like the surveillance state. Like if you commit a crime, you're probably gonna get caught. Especially knowing you're lazy enough that you just get tired and be like, whatever, I'll give up.
I give up. It was worth it.
That's the funniest part, that somehow either you know you're a latent criminal and you're just admitting it to us now, or that you actually believe there would be a scenario in your life where you would be a criminal. Like, you're a pretty upstanding, respectful, responsible, friendly.
I watch a lot of movies.
I'm not closing the door on that criminal activity option.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to.
If I needed to steal bread for my family, I wanted that option to be there.
Okay, back to the tattoos. I don't want to get.
I want to talk about
Crofton's
latent criminal
criminal endeavors he might undertake. Here's the other thing about getting a tattoo is I would be like, you go into the tattoo shop. There are tattoo shops everywhere. And I know enough about art to know that not that many people are that good at art. That I would be like...
Gauntlet laid or thrown. What is it?
Well, okay, and so here's the other thing. One of my favorite things on the internet are picture lists of tattoo fails If you have not Googled these, you should, because
They're pretty spectacular. Yeah.
they're hilarious, and like mostly like misspelled words, like
Oh
just
God.
Like stick figure type art.
or
too,
the
like-
best are like portraits of a baby that someone who has no business doing a portrait quality art has done, and you're just like, oh sweet Jesus, what is that? And so like you're taking a bit of a risk. The other day, one of Andrea's old friends was over, and she was going to get a tattoo that afternoon, and I was just like, oh, make sure they don't let the intern do it on you. Because like, you want to make sure that it's not like so. Because at some point it's somebody's first tattoo, right? You're not born having done thousands of tattoo and mastered the art. And every time you take up a new art, whether it be painting, drawing, there's like a slight learning curve, even if you're already an accomplished artist, to know how does the shading work when you're tattooing. Those people have to experiment on someone. They got to figure it out. You make mistakes, but then you've made mistakes and it's sort of permanent. Like, maybe, so I'd be like, you're always taking a bit of a risk when you get a tattoo of like, how good is a person really? Are they going to screw up what you want? And can you live with that, I guess?
There are like famous tattoo people that you got to book like crazy in advance and stuff, like known tattoo artists. I'll tell you, like, I know those tattoo fails exist, but I'm actually quite impressed at the amount of people that have tattoos that aren't epic fails. Like, for the amount of people that have tattoos, like, because I agree with you, not that many people are great at art, but yet, so I guess a lot of them are stencils or something. I don't understand how.
Well, they are tracing. Like what they do
Yeah.
is they get the stuff, they apply it to your skin, and then they're just tracing it. So they're not maybe the hard art they've done before on paper and transferred it to this thing that goes onto your skin. But still, like there's room for error is all I'm saying. And it's like you are right. You do make a good point. I've seen a lot of pretty good quality tattoos around as well.
So yeah, when I watch pro wrestling, which I think we talked about on a previous podcast, the wrestlers to brand themselves often get tattoos. Like you see their sort of tattoos growing as the longer they're with the company and that sort of thing, and it's because like they're engaged in this showmanship in which they're not wearing any clothes for the most part. So how do you brand yourself? How do you express your individuality? You do it through drawing or on your skin. And I think that the appealing part of tattoos is the ability to sort of wear your heart on your sleeve, almost literally, and to say it's sort of like almost the ultimate demonstration of confidence in yourself by saying like, look at me, look at what I'm into or what I appreciate. Because like I use the example of pro wrestling right now. I don't go around yelling to everyone, hey, I like pro wrestling, because honestly it's kind of embarrassing sometimes. And with tattoos you are literally putting yourself out there. And so I mean I do find that kind of interesting and almost brave from the people who do wear tattoos.
Just think Old Crofton might have gotten a WWF tattoo somewhere on his body. And there's no more WWF.
Now you'd have to get a little panda logo beside.
Yeah, I would just update it, with the panda.
But also, you'd be embarrassed now, whereas maybe back then you might not have been as embarrassed about being a fervent wrestling fan.
It would be retro, Bo, now.
I think there's also like an element of people with the tattoos of trying to like, I don't know, somehow prove they're like hardcore, whatever that means.
Well, tattoos, like, don't they have isn't there like a rite of passage thing? Like, I think I met somebody who had, it wasn't a fancy tattoo, it was a tattoo done by amateurs. I think it was done in some war that they were a part of, that people who were in World War II or something like that gave each other these tattoos as some sort of symbol, something to take with them to like never forget kind of thing. Like tattoos have that history, right?
But I think that was bad. Yeah, like history. I'm talking more the current regime of tattoos.
I know, but
like,
that's where the hardcore I think comes from. Which
well,
is like,
yeah, certainly. But I think like when I think of people like say Justin Bieber, okay, who I always think of as like, his music seems like the most generic pop music ever. He's way he dresses seems like someone has just said, this is what's in among the people you represent, so wear it. He looks absolutely uninspired and like he's like the leader of the mainstream sort of youth. And then it's like he gets a bunch of tattoos, and when I saw some pictures of him, I was just like, obviously, of course, because now he wants to be like, oh yeah, I'm a bad boy too. I gotta get some tattoos, and it just seems so obvious and boring. And like the other guy I think of like that is who's that soccer player from Britain all ladies like? He's old.
David Beckham.
Yeah, Beckham. So he gets like sleeve tattoos. He's like, oh yeah, I'm hardcore now, or whatever. That was a British accent.
But see, I do think what you're doing there is, and I think there's some validity in doing that. Is there's tattoos, and then there's the people that get tattoos, right? There's tattooing, and there's people, and that for the large part of people that I used to meet, and when you were using the rebellious sort of appeal of tattoos when you're speaking about them earlier, like you do get those guys where you immediately judge them. You're making prejudgments based on what they have. Like if I see a guy with like barbed wire on his bicep, I'm like, all right, I have opinions before even speaking to him. He's taking a risk because he's putting himself out there with this, but I'm developing opinions. It's opinions I have about a lot of people with tattoos. Yeah. And while I used the example of Samoan heritage earlier or whatever, and there's plenty of other things like that, my general belief is similar to Mike's, which is that most people I know that get tattoos fall into certain neat categories. Like, are you guys familiar with tramp stamps?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. These are tattoos that women generally will get in on the lower back area, and I think
fancy cursive writing.
Yes, butterflies with their wings spread out or something like that. The thing is that I think there's something about that being not as painful an area.
I think there's like a completely unjustified and derisive term for that.
Tramp? Oh well, we didn't.
Well, it's just
you didn't make it up.
I didn't make
it
up.
No, I know you didn't make it up. I'm adding that to the conversation.
It does sound a bit,
because that to me encapsulates because you're saying, Mike, that tattoos are mainstream, and I think to a certain group and maybe a certain type of urbanite they are. But in my most recent workplace, we had a gentleman with tattoos. We asked him to cover it up, and in those kind of workplace, dominate in a lot of urban areas, and there are lots of people who have that conservative mindset that certain people engage in getting tattoos, and they're kind of maybe dumb or they're shady or whatever, and people might not be openly derisive towards people who get tattoos, but generally it's still not wholly accepted as like, cool, you got a tattoo, whatever, come work in this bank with us and show off your tattoos, because a lot of these corporate cultures, in terms of code of conduct and appearance and all that kind of stuff, don't accept that kind of thing very willingly. They may have to because of law, because of discrimination for physical appearance, which once you make something a tattoo, it's part of you.
Yeah, and it's becoming more accepted. Like I'm seeing it more in the workplace.
It's becoming more accepted, but there's plenty of culture that does not accept. It still ruffles people.
And it's tying in more and more with the hipster life. A lot of hipsters, which is sort of the subculture of our time. Like
hipsters
I think
just want to take from everything, though.
Well, but I think if you look back at this moment in time, one of the things like that will stem from it is this was a time period of hipsters, and I associate hipsters as having tattoos. And going back to Mike's brother. I think you're seeing the rise of a lot of people like Mike's brother who have a tattoo, but then and it's fairly large, but go to work, button shirt, belt,
he's a
pants,
shirt, public servant. And,
and then clocks run out, goes into the parking lot, gets on his motorcycle, puts on a different outfit, and he's got his tattoo or whatever, and like it's almost like two personas, if you will. So there's a lot of people that hide their tattoos. There's a lot of people you would not even know have it. I guarantee there are people I know that do not have tattoos, that have tattoos that I do not know about. Sorry.
Yeah, you hear about those people all the time. I met a guy at work today who had a tattoo. I didn't know clue. It was a very small one, somewhere innocuous. But this brings up the neck and face tattoo, which is people who are like real hardcore. They get it like on their face. Well, I was recently, as you guys know, and maybe some of our listeners, I was out in Nelson, British Columbia for a while, and it's kind of a hippie town. And there was this kid I kept seeing on the street, because like he might have been 18, and he was sort of he was this kind of hippie. I don't know if he had dreadlocks, but long hair, and he had tattoos all over his face, and they looked horrible. Like I don't even know what they were. They were like lines with like things hanging off them, and like not tears, but like dots and things all over his face. And I felt like I knew him like, what are you, 19 years old? Like you probably don't know what you're doing with your life. You can't commit to anything, but you commit to that. Like you get lines all over your face, like forever. You're like, oh, it just seems like but maybe that's part of it with some of that stuff, to be like, yeah, I'm going to like imprint this part of my life on me, even if it's in a place like face, neck, because that's who I am now. And it'll walk with me through life, even if I change. And maybe you got to respect that. I don't know.
I generally, like, that's the whole conversation, is you don't know whether someone got their tattoo from a valid, really good cultural, traditional reason, from maybe their family or their upbringing, or they survived something, or they're part of some motorcycle club a la Sons of Anarchy, and they get skulls on them for every person they kill, and that's deeply spiritual and meaningful to them. Or it's just the whimsy of a teenaged or immature mind trying to fit in, doing it for the wrong reasons. When you stop to judge someone on the street for their tattoo, you can't really know, because you can decide whether it's like in good, like, what a great piece of art, that must be of significance, or if it's nasty. It's like, wow, they must have also not had a deep reason for wanting to do it, when I don't think those two you can evaluate on the same vector. Yeah,
it is fun. It is funny though, because like we talk about this, and I know I'm as guilty of it as the next person. But like racism is all about evaluating people by the way they look, and before you know anything about them as an individual. And tattoos, it feels like I'm doing that. I'm seeing someone and I'm making a judgment call, even though I don't know anything about them. Now, in some cases, it has to do with the tattoo. Like the tattoo says something about themselves, but sometimes it's just because they have a tattoo, or that they have a tattoo that's the whole length of their leg. So I'm making a judgment call that this person is like this. I haven't even met them or whatever, just based on what they're
like
wearing.
if you meet a guy with like a Pittsburgh Steelers tattoo on his face, which I've seen on the internet, he's really committed fan to the
Wait.
It was a homemade one too. It looked horrible.
Like it's the corporate logo for a sports franchise.
Oh yeah, you see lots.
Oh yeah, there's gotta be.
Like maybe that means a lot. Maybe his father worked for that team his whole life, and he works for them, and it's their whole life. Again, and you don't know. But my immediate judgment is, what a fucking moron! like.
But I mean, but here's the thing: like Crofton's points, like I'd say, half valid in the sense that you shouldn't be judged by how you look, how you present yourself, how you dress, to some extent. But at the same time, we talked about dress codes once, and this came up a little bit. It is a choice how you want to present yourself, and you can be judged by those choices. So you want to put tattoos on yourself. It's not like a component of your being other than when you have chosen it, when you weren't born with it or whatever. You put it on, and people may judge it, and maybe they'll judge it wrongly, but they may. And it's just in the same way that the clothes you put on in the morning, people will say it says something about you when you leave the house in the morning. Tattoos the same way, except you can't change it. Well, you can, but it's painful. Apparently, the removal.
It's not easy to change.
I'm just about ready for verdicts. I don't know about what you guys.
I think so too. I'm trying to think if I left anything on the floor.
There's lots of things. We didn't talk about prison tattoos.
Well, again, a little bit. Like, it's rite of passage, right? Prison tattoo. We've been to prison. I was in Sing Sing for 20 years. And
we did. Both made the example of the World War tattoos, or the war tattoos. And there are different reasons for tattooing. And one of them could be cultural, and another could be experience, and to commemorate a shared experience. Like I'm not judging this one way or another, but the all the people who played the Fellowship of the Ring in the Lord of the Rings movies all collectively went and got, after the filming or during the filming of the movies, the same tattoo. I forget what it is, but it was to
Flaming
commemorate.
skull.
Yeah, I think it was something
was
in
like-
Elvish, like a character in Elvish or something. It was to commemorate the experience that they had filming those movies, right? So, I mean, it was something to tie them together and this sort of thing, and the same is true with the prison thing. It's a different type of experience.
I think. Hang on. It was a tattoo of the word 9.
Oh, I don't. It
in
doesn't
Elvish.
matter. It doesn't
Yeah, let's
matter.
not look it up. Let's not give
Yeah.
it any more credibility than it deserves. They're a bunch of hipsters, those actors.
Jeez.
Well-
All right.
I'm just
Fine.
saying there's culture and tradition, there's experience, and then there is like individuality or reflecting oneself. These are all reasons that people would sort of cling to in terms of getting a tattoo. Some of them more valid than others, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would just like to touch on that because again, the history of it, and like we talked about like Samoan culture, and I think that's one of the places where tattooing first was done, and it's a certain like Papua New Guinea and places like that. And then I think it was sailors, like often British sailors, who'd be going around the world doing what they did, sailing and whatever, and they get these tattoos in these foreign places and come back with tattoos, and they were kind of a different class of people. You see the sailor with the tattoos, whatever. But now it's essentially like you guys know me, highly commercialized. Like this stuff is like there are tattoo stores, for lack of a better word, all over town, and it's just like you just walk into the store and get a tattoo. It's a little bit of a contrived thing, It's not like it was when you were someone who, you spent time in the West Indies on a ship trying not to get scurvy, or then you came back with a tattoo. Now you're like, sweet, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm gonna go down to the store and get a tattoo on my face, and it's just different. It's like anything else. It's just you just go and buy it at the store.
It is more mainstream, and I'm
there's
sure,
tattoo pros everywhere, man.
I'm sure the people who are into tattoos would love to see it be more accepted, because that creates a bigger industry for them. Like you said, there's a store everywhere. Well, they need customers to, the person doing that Steelers tattoo is probably like, I guess, like, it's not my favorite project I've ever done, but you're gonna give me $1,000? Okay, let's do this.
We should Google that image for when you release the show. You should put
There's
that.
probably so many great ones. This will be
There's
much
lots of
easier.
bad tattoos.
It'll be much
out there.
easier than the circumcision one, which was kind of horrific. Yeah.
It was funny, as if to like crystallize the tattoo thing, and I try never to Google during this show or whatever, but I did a Google image search of The Rock's tattoo, because he's Samoan, and he had this really like sort of reflecting of his heritage. He had this professional tattoo artist do this big arm tattoo, and I've always thought it looks pretty cool, and it really works with him. And I thought that was the good thing of tattoos. And then when I did the image search for The Rock's tattoo, there were a bunch of photos of The Rock and his tattoo, and then there were a bunch of photos of stupid white guys or whatever who had The Rock's tattoo.
Who copied The Rock's tattoo.
They literally
So
went and
unique.
be like, wow, The Rock looks awesome. I want that tattoo. I'll put it on it. And like, there's a big story behind it. Like, each thing is about his Samoan heritage and all this. And they're like, oh man, that looks wicked. I got it. Like,
But like that's like a case in point of like some of these things have like cultural legitimacy in the sense that they're ingrained in thousands of years of heritage. If you're Samoan, and if you're some like white kid in the suburbs who's like, yo, I'm legit, I'm gonna go get a hardcore tattoo, sleeves all of my arm, or like Japanese tattoos, those kind of like Yakuza, that's a popular kind of type that people get. And it's like, what are you? You're not Japanese. Like, who are you? You're just taking that culture. And anyways, I'm ready to give a verdict.
Clearly.
I wonder what it's gonna be.
I'm still laughing about sailors, whatever they do, sailing, I guess.
Just sailing the seven
like-
seas, Bo. They're just sailing around.
Funniest thing, whatever it is sailors do, sailing.
They do lots of stuff. All right, I'm just gonna get the ball rolling here. Tattoos, if and I'm gonna admit full on, like my bias is clear here. I'm not big into tattoos. I think tattoos. We have this verdict that I think tattoos fit into perfectly, which is bullshit, and I'm giving that to Moo at Home Cow. It's one of those things. They're just kind of whatever. They're so mainstream now. They've lost that kind of rebellious quality that they once had. There's artistic value in it. Sometimes they're neat things. You mean something. You want to get them, great. You don't want to get them, whatever. I don't know. I just think they're a bullshit thing. If it works for you, fine. If they look stupid half the time. So
They're too
that's
mainstream. They're too
yeah,
mainstream.
too mainstream. Well, and other things too.
All right, Crofton, you go.
Oh, putting the pressure on me, Avo.
That's right. It's my turn to go last this time.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that Hodgins is right. Tattoos are in fact bullshit. And last episode we talked about vegetarians and vegetarianism as being a brave thing. We used that term a couple of times. And it kind of bothered me as I thought about it a little more, because I was like, it's not really that brave. It's tough to be a vegetarian, but not necessarily brave. But with tattoos, it's kind of the same deal in that not having a tattoo is the easiest thing you can possibly do. You don't do anything. You don't suffer any pain. You don't have to make any decisions. You just don't get a tattoo. Getting a tattoo involves a bunch of stuff. It involves pain. It involves wearing your heart on your sleeve to a certain extent. Like, there's a lot of people. I make judgment calls, but there's a lot of people who have tattoos that I legitimately respect for being brave enough to share that with people, and brave enough to go through the whole process. But I just there's just enough, like anything, there's just enough dumb people who have kind of taken what was culturally significant, what was a shared experience, and just made it ridiculous. So while I really like certain aspects of tattooing, there are other aspects of it that just make me roll my eyes so far back in my head I can't see anymore. So for that reason, bullshit fits me perfectly. I'm going to say bullshit.
All right. Well, I wish I had gone before Crofton now, because I feel a little confused. But I'm just going to go with what I initially thought. Tattoos, on the surface, like I'm pro people doing artistic things. So I like the idea of people painting and writing stories and doing all kinds of artistic stuff. And to do that on your own body seems perfectly fine. Kind of like a very precious canvas that is a finite resource. You can always make more normal canvases or whatever the hell they're made out of. But, your body is limited as to what it can be put on there, and it has this significance as to what you put on it represents you culturally, has meaning for a lot of other people. People take it very seriously. But that being said, I echo a little bit of, Mike's really sort of captured that essence of, look, most of what people put on their bodies is stupid, or it's mainstream and copied, and Crofton has told us a story about The Rock and the people copying his sleeves and having no originality. So there's a lot of crap to do with this precious resource of your own epidermis as a canvas. That being said, I think there are examples of beautiful tattoos out there, and I think it's a good thing to want to use your body, make your body better in that way by putting some kind of expression on top of that. So I'm teetering, and I've come to a decision right here live as I've been delivering this thing. because I've been teetering between two. I'm going to say tattoos are good. And I'm not going to let the fact that there are so many crappy tattoos and so much crap examples taint the fact that a good tattoo can have a very important significance and be really deep and meaningful. So I just think people need to respect the dangerous land they walk in when they start to think about giving themselves a tattoo.
Well,
I'd love to have an awesome tattoo, but I haven't had an opportunity to have them.
Well, I commend you, Bo. I think someone had to give tattoos good, even though it couldn't be me. It could be someone. If you, our dear listeners, have opinions on how we are idiots for our views on tattoos, or have awesome tattoos, then please get in touch with us. You can email us goodbadbull@gmail.com. You can send us a tweet at goodbadbull, and you can find out all this information on our website, goodbadbull.com. You can also, of course, subscribe to the podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, and you can like us on Facebook if you like us.
Yeah. And also, if they want to support us...
Oh, the Patreon thing.
Yeah. Check us out
we
on
got a
Patreon.
thing on Patreon. If you want to support the show.
Yeah, Bo's mom can't be our only supporter, folks.
It's true. First of all, we need to thank my mother for supporting us with a whole
Thanks,
$5 a month.
That's a big support.
Someone's
It
got to
is a
get the
big
ball
support.
rolling. Yeah, it's like $60 a year, man. Someone's got to get the ball rolling, and she's our biggest
That's half
fan.
of Netflix.
And she's exactly. And you know what? We're worth it. Our content is way more unique and special than a bunch of rehashed television programs with.
Agreed.
All right. Oh, you hear that?
Something's happening here.
There's some birds. Birds are coming in. All right, and they've got a letter. So, as we mentioned on the top of the show, we got a letter from a Mr. Andrew Delaney, and it reads as
Hi,
follows.
Andrew.
It says, "Dear Bo," and I'm sure he meant to say Mike and Crofton, but he didn't. Yeah.
No, he likes Bo.
But it's okay. I just recently wrote my final law school paper for St. John's in New York. I assume that's the university, on the subject of circumcision. Since I know you have covered this issue, I thought you might be interested in reading it, especially given the overwhelmingly positive feedback I have gotten from others I have shared it with. Let me know, and I would be happy to send along a copy to you. So I did ask him for a copy, and we got back a 39-page paper. And the one thing I will say is this. I've written university papers. I've always done my best to research as little as possible because I'm like a creative writer and I can't write these things properly. And to me, this was if I had this when I was in university, I'd try and model my efforts on actually doing good paper, because even though I didn't check all of his sources, it felt really well researched and really well articulated. So I'll say that off the bat.
It was a good paper. I read it, and I appreciate it. Was Andrew, right? I appreciate, Andrew, you sending it in, because he, on this show, we talk about things on the fly, and we gather whatever knowledge we have, and we, chit-chat about it, and sometimes we don't know all that much.
We don't know shit.
Well, we know a little.
Circumcision, I think I said I don't really know what to make of it, was my...
Yeah, maybe that's why Andrew sent it in. But so he did an excellent job of comparing, because we at the start talked about female genital mutilation. We're like, okay, well, let's agree that's bad. And he kind of laid the two up, and the arguments used for and against and female genital mutilation, and kind of lined those up on the arguments around male circumcision. And it was pretty convincing in the sense that they seemed more similar than not. I mean, granted, some of the extreme forms of female genital mutilation really do go, above and beyond, and do seem quite horrible. But a lot of them were almost very, very similar, just like he pointed out, just removal of the clitoral hood, very similar to just removing of the foreskin in terms of anatomy, and that made up like 35% of like statistics like that he sent. And also he also pointed out that it was started in the U.S. to stop boys from masturbating, because it's harder to masturbate. We didn't talk about this if you don't have a foreskin, and I was like, man, interesting. And you wouldn't, and like, so
let me confirm that it's not
That
harder
does
to
not
masturbate at all.
I bet you it is. And you guys don't have a foreskin.
That's what I'm saying. This is from the horse's mouth.
Well, do you use lubrication?
No.
Oh, interesting. You have to. Okay. Anyways, all I'm saying was,
I mean, sometimes.
Andrew, I gave that a rating of bullshit, and I would change it to bad based on his paper.
And I want to echo what you said there too. Is there's a few other things in there. One was people seem to be okay with shitting on female genital mutilation, but that actually male circumcision, even as a topic for debate in law, is like, no, you can't talk about it. like, you're not of this religion, let's not have a discourse, you're not qualified to speak on it. It's a sacred sort of thing to a lot of religious groups, and that always stymies science, right? Where it's like, no, we can't examine this thing, just accept things for what they are. Your examination is an affront to all of us, and you shut things down by being insulted. Where I think, and the paper fully convinced me, that I will not be circumcising my children, because basically, as far as I can tell, and it kind of confirms my sense of it, is there's no point to any of it. It's just for stupid religious reasons. And I say stupid because I'm an atheist. I think doing things for religious reasons is stupid. I respect your religion, but that doesn't make it any less stupid. I sometimes masturbate without lotion. It's stupid, but I still do it. But
Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, it's funny that this came up when it did, just because there's like a moment, like a moment in the zeitgeist here with regards to circumcision, a topic that honestly I had given no brain space towards for a long time. But in Canada here, we've had a woman that's essentially ran off with her son to avoid him getting circumcised, and then eventually it's been a high-profile court case where she's broken down crying in court because her son is going to now be circumcised. Meanwhile, Richard Dawkins, who is a prominent atheist and thinker, has been tweeting all week about circumcision, making much the same arguments as Andrew has made in his paper. So, I mean, it's a topic of conversation that apparently is prominent right now, which is good. It's good that people are talking about it.
It is. And the one thing we did talk about was sort of cultural momentum. And like in the U.S. and Canada, like as you're saying, most of the men of our generation are circumcised. And again, like I said before, I don't think anyone who's circumcised should feel bad about it. It's just whatever in a way. But when you have that cultural momentum, it's hard to look at things objectively because there's emotions involved. And he pointed out that a lot of women in certain African places were like, no, like we want our daughters circumcised. So he really did a good job of lining up how similar they were, and how here in this part of the world anyways, we're like, oh, female genital mutilation is horrible, but circumcision, yeah, whatever. Anyways, I would just want to thank Andrew again because it was really interesting, and I hope other people, want to enlighten us on things that we don't necessarily are not the experts about. Please, let us know.
I want to say thank you as well. I was pleasantly surprised to receive this.
It was good. I hope he got an A because it was a good paper. Like,
you know what? Let's give him our verdict on the paper, Mike. I think his paper was good.
Hi, Andrew Delaney, you got a good on good, bad, or bullshit.
Yeah. I think we'll give you one good. We're not going to do the 3 goods. We only have so much time.
Yeah.
But you get a good from us.
So for Bo, if our listeners want to say anything to you about this or any other topic, circumcision or tattoos.
Listen, if you want to talk to me about my, the plight of being circumcised, you can reach out to me.
You've been victimized.
On Twitter. You know what? My rights have been taken away from me. I've had a part of my body removed from me without my consent, and it's affected my adult life. I don't want to grow it back. I'm not a crazy person. Things are fine. I'm not going to blow it out of proportion, but I've been victimized by the system.
It's good. At least we can laugh about it. Like, I mean, you're comfortable.
Yeah. Like, I'm not like it hasn't ruined my. Like, I have to put things in perspective. But a thing is what it is, and it's like it clearly was removing something from me unnecessarily. Yeah, so you can find me at Bo Schwartz if you want to talk to me about my circumcised penis or about video games.
Oh, God.
All right.
It's a good thing we have explicit content on this show. And Crofton, where can our listeners get at you?
They can follow me at Crofton Steers on Twitter, which I'm seriously thinking about having tattooed across my forehead, like just at Crofton Steers. I feel like A, it'll tell people what my name is, and B, I feel like Twitter will be here forever, man. It'll never change. It'll be timeless.
That's a good idea, Crofton. I've actually been, I've done some arts, and I thought I've never tried tattooing, so maybe I can do that for you. I gotta try. I gotta start somewhere.
It's everybody's first time once, Mike.
And as everyone knows, you can't find me because I don't know. I don't want to be found except by the NSA. Stupid Twitter.
Maybe I'll get a barcode tattooed to my head, make a statement against the man.
Yeah, so it was almost, tattoos. I feel bad if I ever get my brother to listen to this episode. He's going to be like, hey, you're crapping on my Grim Reaper skeleton tattoo.
Basically, he was the whipping boy for this episode. Where
Well,
it was just
someone-
like, who do we know with a dumb tattoo? Hey, my brother has one. Yeah.
But you know,
I'd argue. I don't know that I've seen it or I don't remember it. I'd say maybe you're being a little mean. A little mean.
well, he's my brother. I feel like I could get
Just
over
let
it.
me ask you this question, Mike, because I've always been curious about, I have a baby girl now, and at one point she's going to grow up, and she might decide to have a tattoo. And like I brought her
tramp
into
stamp
this
even.
world. Oh God, I brought her into this world as my wife did.
It wasn't assholey at all for you to be like to suggest tramp stamp.
Well, Crofton's one of
Are you guys done here? I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question here. So come into this world and then she'd grow up and get a tattoo. It's her right to do so, but you'd think it would like maybe emotionally affect me. My question to you is, how did your mother react to seeing your brother's tattoo?
Well, you know the answer to this question because I think it's...
I don't think I remember.
Well, she cried. She cried. That
Oh
was
no,
the best
she
part.
cried. Aw.
I know, because she was like, "That's her baby, her firstborn baby,"
know.
and he has a screaming,
And he's molested himself with a tattoo.
He has a screaming skeleton Grim Reaper holding a piston.
I hope you're happy, Richard. You made your mother cry.
I think she's come to terms with it now. My aunt thought it was cool. I think.
To be a cool aunt.
So Crofton, if your child gets a tattoo, you'll be crying. I think that's what
Yeah.
Mike's trying to say. That
She'd
it
be
would-
like,
you'd
"Daddy,
find
I
it
got a
devastating.
Pittsburgh Steelers tattoo just above my belt line."
As long as she doesn't get a Toronto Maple Leafs tattoo. Or
That's what she'll get. Its children have a way of doing that. It'll be a Toronto Maple Leafs, and she'll be listening to bass music from her bedroom. all day.
At the music festival.
Dad, you don't understand me.
I love music festivals in Toronto.